Welcome back to the Josh Cruz Podcast, where we take ideas that are usually reduced to sound bites and slow them down enough to actually understand them. Sometimes that means theology, sometimes it means culture. Most of the time, it's both. This is the final episode in our 3-part series on a figure we think we know, but probably don't: the devil. In the first episode, we started with the oldest layer, before Satan was a villain, before he was imagined as a cosmic enemy. Before horns and pitchforks and rebellion, he was an adversary, a Satan, someone who opposed, obstructed, accused, or stood in the way. Then we watched that role harden into a title, Ha-Satan, the accuser. In Job and Zechariah, he appears in the divine court, not as God's equal enemy, but as a prosecutor, a tester, a figure who asks whether human righteousness is real or whether it's been a response to blessing. In the second episode, we followed that accuser into darker territory: empire, Persian influence, cosmic dualism, Lucifer, the Watchers, Mastema, Belial, the strange and crowded world of Second Temple Jewish imagination, where evil became bigger than an accusation. It became organized. It became cosmic. It became a rebellion. It became a kingdom. But now we have to bring the question into the world of Jesus, because by the first century, the devil is not merely an accuser in the court. He is not merely a fallen star or a rebel angel in the background of history. He is the tempter in the wilderness, the strong man whose house must be plundered, the father of lies, the ruler of this world, the force behind powers and principalities. And this is where the question becomes much harder. Because once Jesus starts talking about Satan, the devil is not simply out there anymore. He is also in here, in the heart, in desire, in fear, in the systems we build, in the kingdoms we admire, in the voice that offers us power without the cross. So today, we're asking the final version of the question: who is the devil when Jesus talks about him? And maybe more importantly, where is the adversary still at work? By the first century, Jewish thought was holding together two ways of talking about evil. One was external. This was the world we explored last time: demons, unclean spirits, fallen angels, watchers, Belial, cosmic conflict, kingdoms of darkness. Evil as something outside of us, something invasive, something hostile, something that presses in on our world from beyond ordinary human weakness. But there was also another stream of thought, a more internal one, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. In this view, the struggle between good and evil is not only happening in the heavens, it is happening inside the human heart. The rabbis often spoke of two inclinations: the Yetzer Hatuv, the good inclination, and the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. But evil inclination can be a little misleading if we hear it as pure wickedness. Yetzer Hara was not simply the desire to murder people or burn down villages. It was the raw drive of human life, appetite, survival, competition, possession, sexual desire, ambition, the impulse to build, to acquire, to secure, to win. And this is where the tradition gets more honest than many of our categories. The rabbis did not always treat the Yetzer Hara as something useless. They understood that without desire, civilization collapses. Without ambition, no one builds a house. Without sexual desire, no one marries. Without the drive to produce, trade, and compete, human society stalls. The problem is not always desire itself. The problem is desire without order, appetite without submission, ambition without love, drive without God. That is a much more uncomfortable view of evil, because it means the danger is not only that some outside force might attack us. The danger is that something necessary inside us might become disordered. A good gift can become a tyrant. The thing that helps us build a house can also help us build an empire. The desire that forms a family can also consume another person. The ambition that creates something useful can become the hunger to dominate. And that means evil is not always foreign to us. Sometimes evil is what happens when something familiar gets loose. This gives us a different way to hear one of the strangest moments in the Gospels. Jesus looks at Peter and says, "Get behind me, Satan." That line can sound extreme if we hear Satan only as a cosmic monster. Peter has not suddenly become the devil. He is not spouting horns. He is not possessed by a dragon. He is doing something much more ordinary. He's trying to protect Jesus from the cross. In Mark 8, Peter has just confessed Jesus as the Messiah. He gets the title right, but as soon as Jesus begins to explain what that means, that the Son of Man must suffer, be rejected, be killed, and rise again, Peter rebukes him. Peter cannot imagine a suffering Messiah. He cannot accept a kingdom that comes through rejection. He cannot see how death could be the path of God, so he pulls Jesus aside and tries to correct him. And Jesus hears the adversary. "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." Peter is not evil in some cartoonish sense. He is not trying to destroy Jesus. He thinks he is being faithful. He thinks he is defending the mission. He probably thinks he's being loyal. But his loyalty has become opposition. His concern has become obstruction. His instinct to preserve has become adversarial to the way of God. That should bother us, because it means Satan does not always show up as an obvious wickedness. Sometimes Satan shows up as a common sense, as prosecution, as practicality, as a friend saying, "Surely there is another way. Avoid suffering. Protect yourself. Win. Be realistic. Take the safer road. Don't talk about death. Don't go to Jerusalem. Don't lose." And Jesus recognizes the voice because he has heard it before in the wilderness. The temptation of Jesus is one of the most important scenes in the whole development of the devil. Matthew says Jesus is led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. That sentence matters. He is led by the Spirit to be tempted by the devil. So this is not random. This is not an ambush. It is not a strange interruption before Jesus gets to his real ministry. It is his first major confrontation. Jesus has just been baptized. The voice from heaven has declared him beloved Son. Then he is driven into the wilderness for 40 days. Israel was tested in the wilderness for 40 years. Jesus is tested for 40 days. Israel failed. Jesus stands. And the temptations are not random. They are not merely private moral tests. They are temptations about what kind of Messiah Jesus will be. First, bread. If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread. Use power to satisfy appetite. Turn sonship into self-provision. Meet the need immediately. Jesus answers from Deuteronomy. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Then spectacle. The devil takes him to the temple and says, "Throw yourself down. Force God to catch you. Make divine favor visible. Make faith dramatic. Make the crowd watch heaven prove who you are." Jesus answers again, "You shall not put the Lord your God to the test." Then comes the third temptation, and this is the hinge. The devil shows Jesus all the kingdoms of the world and their glory, all of them, their wealth, their armies, their architecture, their borders, their roads, their systems, their ability to command obedience and enforce outcomes. And the devil says, "All these things I will give to you. All these things I will give you if you fall down and worship me." Now, it is worth noticing what Jesus does not say. He does not say, "Those aren't yours." He does not say, "You have no claim over them." He does not stop to argue the premise. The devil offers Jesus the kingdoms of the world, and Jesus refuses the offer, but he does not treat the absurd. That is unsettling, because it suggests that Jesus recognizes something about the present world order. The kingdoms of the world, as they currently operate, are not neutral. They're not simply tools waiting for the right righteous person to hold them. They are organized around something other than the life of God. The temptation is not merely do something evil. The temptation is take the world without the cross. Take the power without suffering. Take the crown without obedience. Take the kingdoms on the devil's terms, and then tell yourself you'll use them for good. That may be the most seductive temptation in the Bible, because it sounds almost reasonable. Imagine what Jesus could do with the kingdoms of the world. He could end hunger, stop wars, force justice, make people behave, build the right system, put the right person in charge. The offer is not just evil for evil's sake. It is empire as a shortcut to righteousness, and Jesus refuses. He refuses to become Rome in order to defeat Rome. He refuses to seize the machinery of domination and call it redeemed because he is the one operating it. He refuses to build the kingdom of God using the logic of the kingdoms of the world. That is why this scene matters so much. The devil offers Jesus empire. Jesus chooses the kingdom. And they are not the same thing. This is also why Jesus' exorcisms matter. Modern readers often treat exorcisms as the weirdest part of the Gospels. It feels ancient, uncomfortable, maybe even embarrassing. We tend to separate those stories from the real ministry of Jesus, his teaching, his ethics, his compassion. But the Gospels do not separate them. When Jesus casts out demons, he is not performing sideshow miracles. He is announcing that another reign has arrived. One of the clearest moments comes when Jesus is accused of casting out demons by the power of Beelzebul. His opponents say, in effect, he is using demonic power to defeat demons. Jesus responds by reframing the whole argument. If Satan cast out Satan, his kingdom is divided. Notice the language. Kingdom. House. Strongman. Jesus does not describe evil as random chaos. He describes it as organized, structured, ruled. Then he says no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his goods unless he first binds the strong man. That is what Jesus says he is doing. He is entering the strong man's house, binding him, plundering what he claimed as his own. In other words, exorcism is not just rescue, it is regime change. The world has been occupied, and Jesus is taking back territory. That territory is not only land, it is human life. Human bodies, human minds, human communities, people trapped under the forces that dehumanize, isolate, distort, and destroy. So when Jesus heals, forgives, touches the unclean, eats with outsiders, casts out demons, challenges religious gatekeepers, and announces good news to the poor, those are not disconnected acts of kindness. They are all signs of the same invasion. The kingdom of God is arriving, and the strong man is losing his grip. John's gospel gives us another layer. In John, the devil is called the father of lies and the ruler of this world. Those two phrases belong together. The devil is the father of lies because evil begins by distorting reality. That takes us all the way back to the garden. The serpent does not begin with a weapon. He begins with a question. Did God really say that? That is the first move. A slight twist, a reframing, a suspicion introduced into the story. God is not protecting you. God is withholding from you. God does not want you to become like him. The boundary is not gift, it's oppression. The command is not life, it is control. Take and eat. The first satanic act is not violence, it is interpretation. A lie about God. But lies about God do not remain abstract. Eventually, they become violence. If God is withholding, then grasping becomes wisdom. If God cannot be trusted, then obedience becomes slavery. If limits are oppression, then desire becomes liberation. The lie creates a world, and the world created by that lie produces death. That is why Jesus can call the devil both liar and murderer. The lie kills. Bad theology becomes blood. False stories about God become false ways of being human. And eventually somebody gets crucified. That is where the second phrase comes in, the ruler of this world. Jesus says, now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. That is a massive claim. The cross is not merely a private mechanism for forgiveness. It is judgment on the ruler of this world. At the cross, the world reveals itself. Religion condemns. Empire executes. The crowd mocks. Friends flee. Power protects itself. The righteous one stands in front of the world, and the world kills him. That is what the world does when perfect love becomes a threat. It kills. But the resurrection reveals that this ruler has been judged. The accusation does not stand. The violence does not win. The lies answered. The ruler is cast out. This is why the cross can be described as victory without becoming domination. Jesus does not defeat the ruler of this world by becoming a better version of him. He defeats him by exposing him, by absorbing the violence, by refusing the lie, by letting the world do its worst and then rising on the other side of it. The ruler of this world is judged because his logic is revealed as death, and the life of God walks out of the grave. Paul gives another way to talk about this. For Paul, evil is not only individual, it is not just a matter of bad people doing bad things. He uses language like rulers, authorities, powers, principalities, cosmic forces of darkness. In Ephesians, he says we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against rulers, authorities, cosmic powers over this present darkness, and spiritual forces of evil. Now that language can sound strange to modern ears, but it names something we still experience. There are forces bigger than individuals, systems that outlive the people inside them, institutions that develop appetites, economies that demand sacrifice, nations that require enemies, crowds that become crueler than any one person in them. A corporation can do things no individual inside it would defend at dinner. A government can bless violence that would horrify us if done without a flag. A religious institution can protect itself while crushing the very people it claims to serve. A crowd can become possessed by outrage and say things no one in the crowd would say alone. This is what Paul's language helps us name. The powers are not just demons floating in the air. They are not less than spiritual, but they are not detached from the world either. They are the invisible spirit of visible structures, the inner life of institutions, the atmosphere that forms people before they realize they are being formed, the pressure inside systems that teaches everyone what must be sacrificed to keep the machine running. This is where the work of theologians like Walter Wink become helpful. Wink argued that the powers are both visible and invisible. Every institution has an outer form and an inner spirit. A government has laws, buildings, leaders, borders, and armies, but it also has a spirit, a way of seeing, a set of loyalties, a pattern of desire, a demand for allegiance. A corporation has products, policies, executives, and employees, but it also has a spirit. A church has doctrine, staff, budgets, buildings, and programs, but it also has a spirit. And when those institutions serve life, justice, truth, and the common good, they can be part of the good order of creation. But when they turn inward, when they demand ultimate loyalty, when they preserve themselves at the expense of human beings, when they make sacrifice of the vulnerable seem necessary, they become demonic. Not imaginary, demonic, because they are now animated by a spirit opposed to the life of God. This is why the devil cannot be reduced to a little monster hiding somewhere in the shadows. By the time we reach Jesus, and especially Paul and John, the devil is not only a personal tempter, he is also the world order, the father of a lie, the spirit behind systems that crucify the righteous and call it justice. This brings us back to something deeply modern. Even people who do not believe in demons know what it feels like when a system becomes evil. We know what it feels like when social media rewards cruelty and then pretends it is just a platform. We know what it feels like when an economy turns human beings into inputs. We know what it feels like when a nation sanctifies violence because it is useful. We know what it feels like when institutions protect their reputation instead of the people they harmed. We know what it feels like when a crowd becomes a mob. At some point, metaphor stops feeling like just a metaphor, because the thing behaves like a wheel. It wants, it consumes, it defends itself, it punishes dissent, it demands loyalty, it asks for sacrifice. That is why the biblical language still matters. It gives us a way to talk about evil when evil is more than personal. The devil is not less than a tempter, but he is more than that. He is the adversary when a friend tries to keep Jesus from the cross. He is the trickster when empire is offered as a shortcut to righteousness. He is the strong man when people are held captive. He is the father of lies when false stories about God create death. He is the ruler of this world when systems organize themselves against the life of God. He is the power behind accusation, domination, and dehumanization. And he is also the impulse inside us that would rather choose control than surrender. That brings us back to the internal tradition we started with, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. Because the system is never only outside us. Empire works because we want what it offers. Accusation works because we enjoy being the prosecutor. Domination works because control feels safer than love. The lie works because some part of us wants to believe it. That is why Jesus' confrontation with Satan is not only cosmic, it is personal. The devil offers Jesus the kingdoms of the world, but every human being knows that temptation is miniature. Take the shortcut. Avoid the cross. Use the power available to you. Protect yourself. Get control. Win. And then tell yourself you did it for good reasons. That is how the adversary speaks. Sometimes through empire, sometimes through religion, sometimes through appetite, sometimes through fear, sometimes through a friend, sometimes through the systems we inherit and the systems we build. So, who is the devil? At this point, the answer cannot be one-dimensional. If you say the devil is only a literal being, you may miss the way evil moves through systems, institutions, crowds, desires, and stories. But if you say the devil is only metaphor, you may miss the way evil feels personal, intelligent, invasive, and hostile. The Bible speaks in layers because evil is layered. The devil is the accuser in the court, the rebel in the imagination of exile, the trickster in the wilderness, the adversary in Peter, the strong man in the house, the father of lies, the ruler of this world. The spirit behind the power and principalities, the impulse in the heart that chooses domination over love, and maybe that is why Jesus does not give a lecture defining him. Jesus simply confronts him wherever he appears, in the wilderness, in the synagogue, in the possessed, in the powerful, in the religious accusation, in the imperial cross, in the lie, in the system, in the heart. Jesus does not defeat the devil by becoming a bigger devil. He does not defeat empire by building a better empire. He does not defeat accusation by prosecuting harder. He does not defeat violence by becoming more violent. He defeats adversary by truth, radical mercy, obedience, forgiveness, suffering, love, and resurrection. He binds the strong man. He plunders the house. He exposes the lie. He answers the accusation. He judges the ruler of this world. And he takes back what the devil claimed was his. So maybe the final question is not simply, do you believe in the devil? Maybe the better question is, where is the adversary at work? Where is accusation replacing restoration? Where is desire becoming domination? Where is religion protecting power? Where is empire offering the kingdoms without the cross? Where are systems demanding sacrifice? Where are lies about God producing death in the world? Where are we being invited to win by the rules of the thing Jesus refused? Because wherever that is happening, whatever name you give it, Scripture recognizes the pattern. The adversary is still standing in the way. The accuser is still building the case. The liar is still twisting the story. The ruler of this world is still trying to hold the house. But the good news of the gospel is not that we finally understand the devil. The good news is that the stronger man has come, and he is taking the house back. Thanks for slowing things down with me.